It was just one tweet, one bold 6-word reply, and it changed Ryan Graves' life forever. That single moment led him to a 5% stake in a company that would redefine how the world moves. That company was Uber. It made him a billionaire. But this isn't just a story of luck, it's a masterclass in timing, initiative, and relentless execution. Chapter 1. The tweet that started it all. Travis Kalanick, then just an advisor for a small, scrappy startup called UberCab, sends out a tweet. Looking for entrepreneurial product MGR/biz dev killer for a location-based service, pre-launch, big equity, big peeps involved, any tips? Ryan Graves saw it, and within a minute he replied, here's a tip. Email me, graves.ryan@gmail.com. 6 words, but what they lacked in formality, they made up for in guts. It wasn't just a pitch, it was a statement. Kalanick was intrigued. He reached out. A few back and forths later, Graves booked a flight to San Francisco. No guarantees, no promises, just a leap of faith. Chapter 2. From tweet to manager. By March 2010, Graves was Uber's first official hire. He was handed the title of general manager, but there was no team, no office, barely even a product. It was effectively a taxi company with no taxi drivers. Uber had no app in the App Store, no drivers, no users. The idea of ordering a cab with a few taps on your phone was still abstract. Graves got to work. He started building what would become the Uber launch playbook. He wasn't just overseeing operations, he was creating them from scratch. Ryan walked the streets of San Francisco, convincing luxury car drivers to take a chance on a weird tech startup with no brand recognition and no guarantees. He attended city hall meetings, understood transportation regulations, and helped reframe Uber not as a taxi service, but as a logistics platform. He coordinated with the developers on app features, driver needs, and user experience. He fielded customer support calls, constantly iterated the process, and even booked rides himself as a mystery shopper. A mystery shopper, if you don't already know, is someone hired anonymously to evaluate a company's service by posing as a regular customer. This was a startup in the rawest form. Nothing worked yet. Everything had to be built, but Graves didn't complain. He created, which is one of the most important traits you can have in business. He had no pedigree, no big investing or business background, but he had energy, he had adaptability, and he had grit. Chapter 3. The first CEO. Kalanick was still just an advisor, so Graves, by default and by hustle, became Uber's first CEO. His leadership was hands-on, practical, and urgent. He didn't just sit in a boardroom barking ideas. He stood curbside, watching the process fail and finding ways to fix it. He was out recruiting drivers, helping them set up their phones, and onboarding customers in person. He debugged problems with engineers and refined pricing strategies. Graves wasn't the guy in the suit pitching to investors. He was the guy fixing the engine when the car was still moving. When Kalanick officially took over as CEO later that year, Graves didn't resist. He shifted smoothly into Senior Vice President of Global Operations, the perfect title for someone who understood the model and now just needed to scale it. Chapter 4. City by city. Scaling Uber was far from glamorous. It was logistical warfare. Each city was a new battlefield. Every one had its own laws, politics, taxi unions, and cultural habits. What worked in San Francisco didn't work in New York. What worked in LA fell apart in Paris. Graves built localized launch teams. He trained operators to understand cities from street level, not just the spreadsheet. He refined a city rollout model, and every expansion was a high-stakes gamble. Every new city Graves expanded Uber to required relentless effort. Wherever Uber expanded, Graves had already laid the groundwork. He wasn't just scaling a company, he was leading a movement towards being the largest and most convenient taxi app in the world. The days were long, the stakes were high, but Graves showed up every day with the same attitude, no excuses. Also, just to interrupt for a second, if you're enjoying this or any of my other videos, I'd appreciate if you'd subscribe to the channel as it helps it out a lot. Anyway, back to the video. Chapter 5. The 5% that changed everything. As Uber's first hire, Graves was granted roughly 5% equity. Back then, it was monopoly money. No one knew what Uber would become. But by the time Uber went public back in 2019, at a valuation of $75 billion, that 5% translated into over $1.4 billion. Graves sold $41 million during the IPO window, cashed out but not entirely, and stayed on the board until 2019. Quiet, loyal, and steady. He was never the loudest, but he was there at the foundation and built much of the house. Chapter 6. Life after Uber. After stepping back from operations in 2017, Graves launched Saltwater Capital, his own investment firm. His investments were thoughtful, not hype-driven. Real-world problems and practical innovation. Graves launched Metromile, which is a company attempting to reinvent car insurance, charging per mile driven, and Shama, a carbon tracking and forest restoration business, and GPX Intelligence, a data-driven logistics company helping businesses optimize supply chain decisions. He kept his playbook simple, looking for founders with grit, clarity, and intent. He wasn't chasing unicorns. He was investing in builders and potential, just like he had once been. Chapter 7. What made him different?
Travis responded to my email address that I had posted in that tweet, said something like, bold response, what's your story? And so I kind of pitched him over email. And then we hopped on the phone that night and just talked about the idea of Uber Cab at the time, which was Garrett Camp's kind of concept and what the idea could potentially become. Certainly had no idea that it would become Uber that it is today, and clearly recognized that both Travis and Garrett are guys who have had past kind of entrepreneurial successes and the types of folks that I wanted to work with to kind of learn from. And
Graves didn't have a Stanford degree. He wasn't in the YC network. He never built an app, but what he lacked in background he made up for in his behaviour. He had hustle, Kalanick said. He showed up first and stayed late. He didn't wait to be told what to do. He found what was broken and fixed it. He wasn't there for the perks, he was there for the mission. Graves now lives in Hawaii with his wife Molly and their 4 children. He's also known for his philanthropic efforts, including a pledge of 1% of his net worth to charity. Graves proved that execution beats pedigree, that showing up trumps credentials, and that the biggest moves sometimes come from the quietest people. Chapter 8. Final thought. All it took was one tweet. Not luck, not connections, not a resume, a decision. Graves took a shot when others hesitated. And when the opportunity came, he didn't just take it, he ran with it. The main takeaway from this story is you don't need permission to make a move. You don't need credentials to build something great. Sometimes you just need the courage to hit send. This was the story of Ryan Graves, a $1 billion reply. If you found this interesting, subscribe and check out our other videos for more deep dives into the hidden builders behind today's biggest companies.